Hopefully you're not leaving late.
Oh, you've got a different one. I've got one here. Here it is. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There we are.
what link am I in?
You're in an older one. It's not visible on the website yet.
Oh, where's the link survey?
Yeah, this one's just come up now.
Alright, so it's not updated on the website.
Audio is good now. Okay, now.
live stream minutes. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending the special council meeting today. I declare the special meeting of 18 June 2025 open at 9 a.m. I advise members of the public that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with council standing orders. Councillors and staff are reminded of their responsibilities under their respective codes of conduct, both inside the council meeting and when dealing externally on behalf of council. On behalf of Whitsunday Regional Council, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet here today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We recognise their deep, enduring connection to country and we extend our respect and gratitude for their wisdom and culture. Welcome fellow councillors, WRC staff, members of the public and the media. Item number 1 is apologies, leaves of absence, which thankfully we've got everybody in attendance today. The next item is my Mayor's budget speech, which I'll address now. Today we had hand down the 25-26 Whitsunday Regional Council budget, my second as Mayor, and I want to take a moment to reflect on the journey we've been on over the past year. Just under 12 months ago, we delivered our first budget for this term, delivered just a few weeks after the new council was sworn in. I think you'll agree that it was necessarily shaped by the organisation. It was a starting point, but not yet a statement for our long-term direction. This year is different. We started early. This budget represents our own choices, debated and hard fought through months of investigation, consultation, and a commitment to understanding and unpacking the real challenges and opportunities facing our organisation and our region. It's a budget that seeks to strike a balance between addressing legacy issues that started before this term, refocusing our services on core responsibilities, and laying the foundations for the critical infrastructure our growing region needs for the future. You don't get told what you inherit, and as we've worked through this budget, we've started to understand a deeper challenge in the financial structure of the organisation. In recent years, Council has consistently delivered a balanced budget on paper. In reality, we were starting to live beyond our means. Our general fund, which derives its revenue from core rates and charges, had developed a structural deficit, around $10 million a year. This growing structural deficit had been cross-subsidised by our commercial arms, namely our water and sewage businesses, funded by payers of water and sewage utility charges. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. And as a singular entity, some may say that is to be expected. But it highlighted a more ideological problem. We were continuing to deliver a wide and growing range of services that our community very much had come to expect, but without the financial headroom needed to invest back into our core infrastructure to sustain our region long term. At the same time, we've been navigating the fallout from significant property revaluations last year, rising inflation, and a cost of living crisis in our community. Council is not immune to these. Core costs, from road materials to waste collection to insurance, have risen steeply across the board. And let's not forget about the other levels of government. It should be well known in the community that local governments receive 3 cents in every dollar in the total pool of taxation revenue collected nationally, with the remainder going to the state and federal governments. We maintain a large percentage of community infrastructure with very little in the scheme of things. And if that's not enough, the financial assistance grants we've received from them to support service delivery and our roads are going down. This year by an order of $779,000 or 12%. That's money taken from our community to be allocated somewhere else. Yet we are continued to be asked to provide millions of dollars in services through cost shifting into areas like public safety, disaster response, natural resource management, and even welfare. If local governments are to remain sustainable, something must change. Like many regional councils, our existing rating structure has served us for many years. But as our region has grown and changed with more diverse land use, shifting property values, and increasing demand for services, it has become clear that the time is right to review and refine the way we fund our services. To address this, late last year we initiated a full rating system review, bringing in independent experts to help us undertake major reform of our general rating model. Our goals were very clear: equity, simplicity and sustainability, and an increase the emphasis on user pays where a user directly benefits from a service. All councillors participated in this and an ample opportunity to provide their feedback to this journey, and as a result is a fairer, more modern rating system, designed to better reflect how our community has changed and to ensure that everyone contributes their fair share. Whenever you make a change to the system, some rates will go up and some rates will go down, as we see with this new model. Now, residential ratepayers make up 87% of our rate base, and for residential owner-occupiers, the average general rate increase is 2%, with utility charges covering water, sewage and waste increasing by around 5%. All up, the average residential household with waste collection will pay $2.92 more on average per week. For commercial ratepayers, it's a much bigger shift. It includes an average increase of around 21%, roughly $14 a week. That's not a figure that we arrived at lightly, but for too long, commercial rates have failed to keep pace with property values and service demands. Likewise, large rate players in the resource and energy sectors will see a significant shift under the new model, ensuring they pay their fair share toward our community. As part of our financial reform, we're also advancing the transition of many council fees and charges to a user pays model, ensuring the full cost of services like waste disposal, development inspections and facility hire is borne by those who use them, not the general ratepayer base. This approach improves transparency, reduces cost subsidisation and supports long-term financial sustainability, so we can continue delivering high-quality services without compromising the future. In trying to avoid sharp rate rises in the past, we ended up with some imbalance. This year's budget begins the process of correcting that and helps lay a more equitable foundation going forward, where everyone is contributing more fairly to the services and infrastructure that support our region's growth and prosperity. This budget isn't just about revenue, it's about how we spend smarter and deliver better. Over the past year, we reviewed our operational services function by function, looking for ways to streamline, create efficiency and reduce duplication. As a result, we've identified and enacted approximately $3 million in efficiency savings across the organisation, including in areas such as libraries, the Proserpine Entertainment Centre, environmental stewardship, community donations, communications and promotion, and corporate back-of-house functions. These savings haven't come at the cost of quality, but they've helped us refocus on what matters most, delivering core services when they're needed, where they're needed, when they're needed. Moving forward, we cannot afford to stop here. We need to continue to look for better and more efficient ways of doing business, minimise waste, and become more productive with what we have. Conversely, some core services have seen an enhanced focus, including boosting our operational roads and footpath maintenance by an additional $2.5 million to ensure we're not just building infrastructure, we're maintaining it. This year's budget delivers a $114 million capital works program, a significant investment in the long-term strength and resilience of our region. Key highlights include approximately $24 million in water and sewage upgrades, over $18 million in waste facility projects and remediation, $36 million in road renewals and disaster recovery roadworks, $7.6 million in parks, aquatics and community spaces. These investments reflect our strategic priorities and the scale of infrastructure required to support a growing modern region. Importantly, it lays the financial groundwork for generational infrastructure, the kinds of projects that will define and drive our region's growth for decades to come. Initiatives like the Cannonvale Community Hub, the Whitsunday Regional Sports Precinct, the Collinsville Community Hub, and the upcoming regional precinct master plans are not just aspirations, they're a vision and catalyst for future investment, connection and opportunity in our community. In summary, ladies and gentlemen, this is a budget that seeks to look forward, that acknowledges the realities of today, rising costs, ageing infrastructure and financial imbalance, while taking confident, responsible steps to get us back on solid footing. It delivers real outcomes now, better maintenance, fairer rates and major infrastructure investment, while also laying the groundwork for the region we want to be 10, 20, 30 years from now. I want to thank my fellow councillors for working together through this process. These were not always easy decisions, and I'm sure there are many things we don't entirely agree, but they were necessary. To our staff, thank you for your professionalism and commitment to delivering a better council for the Whitsundays. The 2025-26 budget is a roadmap for where we're headed. It doesn't solve every challenge, but it sets us on the right path, fairer, financially stable, service-focused and future-ready. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 2.2, our operational plan 2025-2026. Move Councillor Finlay, second Councillor Clifford. Mr. CEO, would you like to speak to the operational plan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I should just take some quick words in relation to the budget and set up the operational plan. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors and those online and in the gallery. This year's $284 million budget has been shaped not only by economic pressures, but our commitment to keeping the Whitsunday region moving forward. Like many households and businesses, council is facing rising costs, and we've used a range of techniques to actually balance the budget in relation to that process. Our councillors take this exercise extremely seriously, weighing up what the community needs against what we can actually sustainably afford and deliver over time. As an organisation, we're responsible for a wide range of activities, from parks to pools, libraries to lifeguards, from water to a range of sewage and other activities and waste activities. So we are a very diverse region. We are urban, we are rural, we are coastal, we are islands, we are remote in different locations, and all of that provides complexity in the way we work and go forward. As mentioned by the Mayor, some of our transport costs, our supply changes, our labour availability, and even our proximity to the resource sector is influencing how we can deliver going forward. So I would also like to thank the team, the councillors and the officers for the commitment in preparing this budget process. And you'll see that there's a range of reports coming before you which will deal with different elements of the budget in this path. So I'll pass over to Councillor, to Jason Bradshaw, our Director, to actually go through the operational plan. Thanks.
Director Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. You have before you the operational plan for the 25-26 financial year. So Council recently adopted a new corporate plan that covers that term from 2025 to 2030. This operational plan is the first under that new corporate plan, and it sets the foundation for the key activities to be undertaken this year. It's been written to be consistent with the underlying vision on the vision of the new council in that corporate plan from 24 to 28, and supports the values of connection, innovation and sustainability. It's built around 5 key themes: our economy, our environment, our community, our council and our infrastructure, with operational initiatives and actions identified for the next 12 months. The focus of the 25-26 operational plan is for investment to transformational activities across the business and to prepare council for future growth, as well as streamlining processes to ensure cost savings realised into the future to remain financially sustainable in the long term. It shows how each section of the council contributes to the overall themes within the plan. I'm happy to take questions on the plan as tabled, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, all had some input into developing the plan. Would anyone like to ask any questions or make comments? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the operational plan. However, I do note some changes to the organisational structure. I'd like to think that councillors are going to be fully briefed on these changes and what the impact's going to be on our long-term financial plan for the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The organisational structure is at a very high level within the organisational plan, and basically we will be coming back to council to talk through the different elements and how we achieve that, in line with also how we're looking to find efficiencies over the coming
Councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for your speech. I think we've all had our input to the operational plan. I think it is a simpler document, and I hope the members of the public that look into it, I think, pretty much anyone could find something in it for them. So I think it is quite diverse, even though we're trying to reduce costs and expenditure. Business as usual is still moving forward significantly with a number of planning and business case things. If I'd had my input, if I'd added one line item, it probably would have been about footpaths. I think for me that's written into our capital works, as you mentioned, significant investment in maintaining, plus we've got budget line items for renewals and missing links. So I feel that is covered here in a line item, but I think it is one of those things that benefits the community. That is something that I saw just not within mention here, but I know it's underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comment? Okay. The motion that Council adopt the 2025-2026 operational plan is included at attachment 3.2.1. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Now, item 2.3, the revenue statement for 2025-2026. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Clifford. Councillor Bradshaw, would you like to touch on this one at all?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning again, councillors. So at the May meeting, Council adopted its revenue policy, which is the foundation document for setting the rating principles to guide how we charge not only general rates but also the utility services and charges. As has been mentioned, we have undertaken some significant work in relation to our general rating structure. In order to ensure simplicity, equity and sustainability, Council has undertaken a comprehensive review of its general rate structure and levels to develop a strategy from 2025 to 2030. This review included a review of current categories, benchmarking, industry best practice and modelling of potential amendments to the rating structure and an implementation plan to smooth any significant impacts. The objectives of that strategy were to ensure we have more transparency and clarity, having a rating structure that is simple to understand, easy and cost effective to administer, have fairer outcomes for everybody, having a rating structure to distribute the rate burden across the different sectors of the community and the economy, and a plan for the future, having a medium-term plan on how it expects to raise general rate revenue over the next 5 years to assist in maintaining financial sustainability. The underlying intent of this budget is to strengthen Council's financial position, enhance its commercial activities while delivering the capital works required to ensure Council can continue to deliver services to the community sustainably into the future. This revenue statement is a key driver underneath that, and it sets the foundations for the rates and charges which will follow with this meeting. Happy to take questions on the document.
Any councillors like to speak to the report? Councillor Barham.
I will. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks everyone. I know this is an overarching statement. I'll probably leave rate categories to the next item. Just on page 58 of the agenda, in the definitions, we've got a new definition for transitionary accommodation, which I think is something worth pointing out. It's part of our bigger package of dealing with short-term accommodation through the planning amendment and setting ourselves up as we move forward through local laws and into our future rating strategy. One typo that got through in the definition is just that on such as publicly. Maybe if we just lose the word on before we upload it. And also I'd like to point out within that definition we have separated people's homes for less than 60 days and people who are renting out single rooms for less than 90 days. So the residents here who are taking a holiday looking to subsidise that holiday with return on their house, also people seeking extra accommodation, are looked to and looked forward within this definition so that it's not a broad brush across everybody. I really feel we are trying to get short-term accommodation to work for our economy and our community.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment at all? I'll just add to Councillor Bowman's comment because it was something I actually was hoping to put in my mayoral speech but did omit. Yeah, look, I think when we sat around the table last year to particularly talk around what we were seeing in the short-term accommodation space, we did highlight that this is ultimately commercial accommodation and it should be treated as commercial accommodation. So I think this change to transitory accommodation goes that way to incorporating that, treating them equally, and yeah, very much supportive of the inclusion of that particular category. So, anyone else like to comment around the revenue statement? Okay, the motion that council adopt the revenue statement for 2025-26 in accordance with section 172 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number 2.4, differential rating categories. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Wright. Would you like to speak to this one, Director Bradshaw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, you had just adopted Council's revenue policy. The next item in front of you is the adoption of the differential rating categories and has just been recently discussed. That includes new categories for transitory accommodation. It does also restructure a lot of the differential rating categories around our residential, commercial and industrial sectors and provides a greater spread of how the revenue is gathered through those differential rating categories. It does still align to the use of land use codes as provided by the Department of Resources and supplied to Council on an annual basis. The differential rating category is that opportunity for us to spread the load of how the revenue is raised right across the community, and the categories proposed are in line with the Council's rating strategy work that we've just talked about and referenced. So happy to take it as read, Mr. Mayor, and to answer any questions.
Thank you. Would you like to make a comment? I'll be quick. Councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Since I got on the council, this is something I looked more closely at. I think as I went into it, started to raise issues, and then I'm glad the new council picked up and went out on a full consideration of this. When I explained to people that a one-bedroom unit paid more rates than a house, it really seemed to explain to people that this is something that deserved a look. Also, for my two budgets, I've pushed for a reduction of increases and costs on local residents and owner-occupiers. I feel, looking back at this, last year we got down to owner-occupiers in the bottom category paying 16% less than the general residential use. Upon this restructure, it's come to 20% less. So I do think the decisions we made 2 years in a row to reduce the burden on people who live in their homes against those who have income producing properties has been a push in the right direction. I support the categorisation.
Else would like to comment? Okay, the motion that council resolves to make and levy differential general rates as per the report, I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item number 2.5, general rate setting of minimum general rates in the dollar and limitations. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Wright. Yep. You want?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report presented builds on the rating categorisations that Council has just adopted, and it is the mechanics of the budget process. So it sets the rates in the dollar and the minimum rates, and whether or not there will be any limitation on increases or capping applied. You will note that capping is generally not applied, but has been applied to really two classes of rating categories, if you like, around some of the agricultural uses and also around some of the multi-residential uses. That's to manage the impact of significant changes that might flow as a result of recategorisations through the budget process. Happy to take the report as read and to answer any questions Council might have.
Anyone want to comment on the report? That's good.
First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for all their hard work, and don't take this personally. I have issues with some of the percentage increases in certain sectors. They're massive, and I can't support it. So marinas, shopping centres, and I'm not saying that they're not paying their fair share, but to hit them with, over 50% increases with no warning or anything else, I think is unfair and unreasonable. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Okay, the motion that Council resolve in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2009 and Section 77 of the Local Government Regulation, the setting of minimum general rates and the dollar limitations as per the report, I put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion.
Please.
What's that?
Please be recorded.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is carried 6-1 with division recorded. I'd also like to note that the council was involved in the discussions for that rating calculation all the way through.
Yeah.
Right, item 2.6, delegation of power to the Chief Executive Officer. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Finlay. Dr. Jason, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this report is somewhat mechanical in nature. It provides the appropriate authority and delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to deal with rating categorisation challenges that might come forward as a result of the total recategorisation of all the properties in the region. It's likely there will be some appeals to the categorisation. This report gives the authority to the CEO to manage those and make the final decision in relation to those determinations for rating categories. Happy to take questions.
Any questions on this one? Motion that council, having resolved to adopt differential rating categories for the 2025-26, resolves to delegate authority to the CEO to undertake the duties listed in the report. Put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 2.7, overall plan, rural fire brigades. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Clifford. Any comment? No, you don't need to comment on this one. It's pretty straightforward.
It is relatively straightforward.
Any comment or question on this particular report, councillors? Okay. The motion that council resolve in accordance with section 94 of the Local Government Act to adopt the overall plan for rural fire brigades per the schedule listed in the report. Put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. We've got 2.8, special charges rural fire brigades. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Finlay. Again, pretty straightforward report. Any comment or question, councillors? No. The motion that council, having adopted in accordance with local government regulation, the overall plan for rural fire brigades, to set the special charges as per listed in the report, I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 2.9, utility charges for waste. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Collins. Director, would you like to touch on this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this report is about setting utility charges in relation to council's waste and recycling services. It builds on the foundations of what was adopted last year around 3 charges around domestic collection, around recycling, around the overall management of waste and how that's been categorised and how the charges have been struck and balanced. Those charges have been discussed in workshops with council, and the appropriate increases have flowed across for this financial year. This resolution sets those charges in relation to waste. Happy to take questions.
Mr. Mayor, obviously support the recommendation, but a few reasons why we need to support this recommendation. Last year, the council made a commitment to deal with required funds for construction of new cells, remediation of our past cells and tips, due to probably changing environmental laws over the last probably 20 years or so, when we used to just dig a hole and put a bit of clay in it and put a cover over it, and that was about it. Today, the standards have changed, the costs have gone through the roof, and along with a 20-point increase last year and a 8% increase this year, that's why, Mr. Mayor, we have to put the charges up in our waste areas. Otherwise, we're going to be subsidised from the general fund. The financial models that have been prepared have been great, and it's good to see that, where we've got a path going forward. I think, as you said in the Mayor's speech, there's $14 million getting spent on a new cell in Bowen plus remediation works, and that's not to do with Kelson Creek as well. So it's a huge budget item in our budgets that over the legacy years beforehand was never there. And so at least, we are dealing with it, this budget, as you said in your budget speech, and going forward. So, we've got a long way to go as well. At some stage, at a point, Kelso Creek will run out of fill, and we're going to have to be planning for a new site somewhere along the line, or some other methods of getting rid of our waste. And obviously, with our new waste manager that come on board this year, and with the director, we're looking forward to some future reports in that regard, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Rock.
Thank you, through the chair. And just to add on to what Councillor Finlay was saying, there is huge legacy costs, and it's nothing to do with previous councils or anything like that. It's purely just because of regulations are changing and things are evolving, and we now have to deal with these historic legacy sites that we never did before. So it's just something that council has to work through and deal with the best we can.
Any further comment? Okay, the motion of council resolve in accordance with section 94(2) of the Local Government Act and section 99 of Local Government Regulation 2012 to make and levy the utility charges for waste management utility services as per the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Number 2.10, utility charges for water. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Collins. Director Bradshaw, I'll hand back over to you and I'll catch up on my pages.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, the report in front of you at this point, 2.10, sets the utility charges in relation to the water supply. Those areas across the local government region which receive the water supply are levied via either a two-part tariff charge or an allocation charge. This report sets the value of those charges for the upcoming 25-26 financial year for both residential and other users, and articulates within those areas those properties that will pay for those utility services. Happy to take questions.
Any questions or comment regarding the council plan?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This year we're seeing 6% increase, which I think works us towards our full cost pricing model and sustainability of the business. Last year I spoke against Councillor Finlay when we had significant increase there to get this very important business to financial sustainability. Touching back on waste, until last year we had what I call the wheelie bin tax, because that waste management facility charge was actually being financed by the people with the wheelie bins. The people who still utilise the landfills and transfer stations weren't actually adding to the quantum of funds. As you touched on in your speech, we're still at a point where water and sewerage is subsidising the general funds. And that's just something for me that I think is important going forward. I'm happy to see we're discussing the dividend policy coming up, where we can set a percentage of return on the capital investment that has been made in those businesses. But for me, we have general rates to fund the general fund, and we have the businesses to fund the business. There's some crossover there through legislation. I'm happy to discuss that, but I'm not in favour of seeing a tap tax continue into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Anyone else like to comment? Okay, the motion of council resolve in accordance with section 94(2) of the Local Government Act 2009 and sections 99, 101 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to make and levy water utility charges as per the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Number 211, utility charges sewage. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Finlay. Director Bradshaw, would you like to speak to 211?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this report sets utility charges in relation to sewer, those areas serviced by sewer in relation to the local government area across the region, noting that not all areas receive this service will pay the charges listed in the report. Again, the charges have been set consistent with the price paths that Council has been reviewing in relation to the sewer activities of Council. And again, happy to take further questions as needed.
Any further comment, Councillor Clifford?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you to the Director. I may be having a blonde moment, but I couldn't find where we were levying that extra charge on the people at Shute Harbour.
Mr Mayor, that's in the resolution, Part D,
Oh, okay.
references the Shute Harbour scheme.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to follow on from Councillor Clifford, going back to my previous thing, For me, with these businesses, we're following a capitalist model of seeking financial return and profit, but we're still following a socialist model where the whole region pays one price except for Shute Harbour. I won't put you through the whole quote again, but I've mentioned before the Queensland Treasury's guide on full cost pricing says that is our decision, and we're making that decision today. I support it, but it also says it is in both the council and the community's interest to understand the financial implications between the cost, and I've left it to this statement because it mentions all the different schemes. We've decided just to charge Shute Harbour more. So in the interest of transparency and following the Treasury guide, I think as councillors and for the public, we should be aware of the differing costs, and that can change with significant investment in the coastal sewage scheme going forward. But I think to aid us in this decision next year, we can be more transparent with the costs per kilolitre and therefore work out if we are actually adhering to our user pays principles. Thank you.
Councillor Finlay?
Mayor, just on the sewage charge, obviously I support the recommendation for this year, but I do think we do need to look ahead a little bit on the sewage. Our rating increases for that are very minimal, even going forward. And if you look at the financial plan that's sent out on Monday, it shows that it's not as healthy as probably our water fund. And particularly if we decide to do a dividend coming out of there, it's going to drain the finances a little bit on that section. I do note that we've got some external borrowings come up in the future years as well. So I think next year, Mr Mayor, we may have to look at the sewage fund a bit more closely than what we have on the price path at the moment.
Any further comment? Motion the Council resolve in accordance with Section 94(2) of the Local Government Act 2009 and Sections 99 and 100 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to make and levy sewage utility charges as per the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Item number 212, administration of rates and charges. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Clifford. Fairly procedural. You don't wish to add anything there, Director Bradshaw. Any comment or question? Councillor Bowman, do you have something?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just between local laws, planning and corporate, just under the owner-occupier definitions, with short-term accommodation, we're including in there that where they have got planning approval and material change of use, they have no further right to owner-occupier. Just to clarify for me and everyone else that we therefore lose the owner-occupier categorisation but move into residential, but unless they have a local law licence, they therefore don't move into transitionary accommodation. Is that the structure we're following here and agreeing with here, just so I understand how it works?
I might ask the manager to comment on that.
Manager?
Thank you. So through the chair, if someone is actively advertising and determined to be actively advertising, they would move into the short-term accommodation category. Transitory accommodation, apologies, let me be very clear. So if somebody has an MCU or a short-term licence, they would also be within that category, within transitory, and be charged accordingly. If they go through the process of undertaking a stat dec, they might have purchased a property that had a previous MCU that they're not utilising. There is a process internally that they can apply through and complete a stat dec. They would then move into non-owner occ because they've got the ability to, but wouldn't be within that transitory accommodation. Hopefully that's clear.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Motion that Council resolve to administer its system of rates and charges in the Whitsunday local government area as per the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Item number 213, concessions and donations for rates and charges. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Clifford. Director Bradshaw, do you want to speak to this one? Or Director Julie?
Oh, I can, Mr Mayor. So, councillors, the policies and the framework around managing concessions and donations remains consistent with previous financial years. Those policies have really only been updated in relation to some of the definitions and clarity around how the policy application will apply. there are strict rules, particularly around the concessions within the local government legislation that need to be followed, and our policies set out the administrative processes for us to follow that to achieve. The final policy there around the donations of rates and charges has been worked up with council. There are no changes to what was adopted in the budget last financial year in relation to the relevant percentages, and they'll be managed within the budget allocation that's been set aside for this financial year. Happy to take other questions.
Finlay?
Mr Mayor, support the recommendation. I think it's also worthwhile noting, as looking at discussions of the state government subsidy. Correct me wrong, Mr Director, Jason, it's $200. It's been $200 for many a years. Yeah, so that hasn't changed. So we're above what the state government gives, and yeah.
Councillor Plum?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was going to touch on Councillor Finlay did preempting our ordinary meeting agenda and the motion to ask the state government to increase that. Also, I know it's mentioned within the revenue statement, but as council, we give 30% up to $350, plus we're also giving 30% on the recycling charge. So with the current fees for people who have the wheelie bins, we're going up to $395 of pensioner benefits, which is almost twice what the state government is giving. So support us giving discounts where they're necessary and help people in the community, but also support the state government assisting with that more than they do. Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, the motion of council resolve in accordance with sections 121A and 121A and 122 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to grant concession in the form of a rebate as per what is listed in the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item number 2.14, investment policy. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Wright. Do we need any discussion on this one? Any comment or feedback? Okay, well, the motion that council resolve in accordance with section 191 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to adopt the investment policy for the 25-26 financial year as per the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item number 2.15, debt borrowing policy. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Finlay.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move amendment to this the recommendation. So, but if Councillor Collins would move first, then
Withdraw. Okay. He's withdrawn moving it. Do you want to speak to it, Councillor Finlay?
we need a seconder. Or do you want me to speak to the amendment?
You probably need to explain what you're amending.
Okay. So my amendment, Mr Mayor, and I'll speak to it after if I get a seconder. Can I speak to it?
Yes.
Okay. So my amendment, Mr Mayor, is included in the borrowings for 25-26 is a loan of $865,000 for the water with a term of 10 years. Following my request for comprehensive financial plans for the business units, which included the water and other business units, the reserve balance retains a healthy position in order of 11 million to over 20 million through the next 10 years. That is also contained with a very, very healthy dividend going back into the general fund as well. So we are maintaining a healthy cash balance in our water fund right through the next 10 years. I refer to the financial model that was sent out on Monday this week, which shows financial returns back in the form of dividends back to the general fund, and still retains a healthy position. I'm not going to focus on the future borrowings. However, it would appear that these are not needed as well. For instance, in 2031-32, there's a $2.5 million borrowing proposed in the debt policy for water. That is not included in the model that was sent out on Monday, Mr Mayor. Overall, the long-term forecast cash is $77 million in our bank this year, Mr Mayor. This is going to increase in the future 10-year horizon up to, can't recall the figure, but it's not decreasing. Our cash balances are going up. Any external borrowings that we do, Mr Mayor, and councillors, incur an interest. That interest has to get paid externally to this organisation, out to a bank who reaps the profits of that. This is another impost on our ratepayers. At least if we have to borrow internally, Mr Mayor, that interest stays within our coffers, doesn't go outside this organisation. We should not be committing our ratepayers to more expense when we can manage the cash flows internally. And be realistic, at $865,000 borrowing in a $180 million budget, and we have got $77 million left in the bank this year, Mr Mayor. I've been around a long time in finance and provided lots of budgets, many discussions with QTC, in my own professional practice where I've got many accountants. I would not recommend a loan of $865,000. I'm going to ask the question to the CEO. Why the staff are recommending this borrowing? The second part of my question is the airport loan. In the performance plan that was sent out, there was not any proposed borrowings. I made a comment to the staff and the CEO, and now they've amended the performance plan to include the proposed internal borrowing of $3 million. What I've now seen, Mr Mayor, we were given a full financial plan for the airport, and I commend the staff involved with the airport making that into a profitable business for this organisation, which includes a return to the council, also pays a significant contribution to the corporate overheads organisation. At the end of the day, it proves that the airport is funding itself. It's also putting money away into a reserve for future funding as well. So for the 26-27 year, we are estimating a cash reserve balance of $9.5 million in the airport. So that's with the $3 million internal borrowing. In the following year, we are proposing to spend $6 million on capital works and leaving a $6 million reserve balance. So I don't see any need to borrow internally at this stage for a $3 million borrowing. I'm not 100% sure what we're actually borrowing the $3 million for. So the purpose of these financial comprehensive plans, which I've been requesting since last year's budget, was so that the councillors and the staff really know where we're going with all our business units, what the bottom line is, what we can fit into a capital works budget, and and smooth it out over a number of years. So I say to the CEO, why are the staff recommending borrowing $865,000 for this year? Because this is the year that affects. The other borrowings, Mr Mayor, are in future years, and obviously we can change that in the future years' budgets if you don't see. So my immediate question to the CEO is, why are we recommending to borrow $865,000 and we've still got a $77 million in the bank?
Councillor, can you just clarify what your amended?
So my amended budget, my amended proposal is that we do not borrow $865 externally for this year, and in the whatever year the borrowing for the airport is, that gets excluded as well. And I may as well throw in there the borrowing for 2031-32 of $2.5 million for the water fund as well. So they're the three things that I would like changing the debt policy. There's no need for it, Mr Mayor.
Do you want to talk to that, Mr CEO, before I seek whether there's support for a second of that?
Mayor. So basically what we do in relation to our policy is to identify particular items which have the potential to actually obtain loans through the QTC and meet their requirements. Only certain elements meet those requirements. The team goes through, determines which ones are appropriate and goes through this process. So in saying that, before we actually take any loans, we often don't take our loans until basically June of the year, we utilise our cash first. So we make a decision, not just by that document, but actually by our position at that time every year. So this is giving us an opportunity in the documentation if we may need it for a loan. So it's not that we will take it, actually we will actually make a very conscious decision before that, but I'm okay for the team to progress through and provide a more detailed commentary.
Anything at all?
Through the chair, just to clarify for the water loan, so this is for raw water supply. It is truck infrastructure related. It was in last year's budget for year 2 as loan funding, and it's obviously in this year's budget for year 1 loan funding carried forward. Through the LGIP review that's being undertaken, this particular project is in our schedule of works 2023, which hasn't yet been fully endorsed. It's not within the schedule of works 2021, which is why we can't allocate LGEP funding to it through this budget. Once the LGEP adjustments have been made and council makes a decision during this financial year, is what I've been advised is the plan, then at that stage that particular project is proposed to be funded under LGEP funds and will be adjusted in a budget review once that decision is made by council.
Okay, so towards the amendment, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that further discussion.
So hang on, but
I'll further Councillor Finlay. Wish to add to the discussion as well.
so the request from Councillor Finlay is to amend the specifically the loan that is 860,000 from the schedule.
In the airport loan and the 3.2 for water in the 2031-32 year.
And so you're seconding that? Yep.
Just keep that wording.
Yep. Okay. I'll open it to discussion, but we might just give them a chance to get that up there.
John, would you consider just doing next year's future? Your budget.
Just thinking of your turn, mate. Start looking too far ahead.
Yeah.
If I had to, Mr Mayor, on the proviso that on our budget reviews, that we did that, but I think the principle of it is there, and again, the purpose of those, I should be standing up, Mr Mayor, sorry. The purpose of those financial plans that we have got now is that we do know the direction of our cash flow. So, happy if we take off the 865 external borrowing for this year. Can I add one further comment, Mr Mayor? I did discuss this at the last briefing session. That's not something I brought up today.
Just seeking to do the first one.
I think that is what you're supporting there, Councillor Bowman, just the initial one. Are you supporting anything beyond that?
Supporting the discussion.
I'm supporting the further discussion of it. I'm not saying I'm voting for or against it at this moment.
You speak to your seconding of the motion, Councillor.
This is one reason why I wanted to open this discussion here. I think it's part of the further discussions. The performance plans go into its council's decision of whether we take dividends back as loan repayments. We have a significant $21 million internal loan to the water business, yet they're handing us back dividends in the millions of dollars each year, and internally the tap tax is paying interest back to council. For me, to be fully transparent, it's money that is excess from the water business that could be reducing that internal loan, topping up our general reserves, which we know we've run down a bit with our capital and network planning, and therefore reducing the internal interest costs of the water business, which is just feeding back to council. So whether I support this action from the CEO's discussion, that this just puts the option on the table for further deliberations, and whether this motion removes that option going forward. But for me, I wanted to add to this broader discussion that we're paying interest on $21 million when the money is shifting from that business to the general fund. We could be clearing that debt from the water business, topping up general funds, not paying internal interest, which is just a double dip at people paying their water and sewage rates. So for me, that's the discussion I want to bring to the table today. For the vote, I think I'd like that reassurance that putting it in this policy is only an option, not locking us into actually taking that borrowings with us. On one hand, hoping interest rates stay up for our interest returns, but in one way, locking us into a 10-year loan when interest rates may be on the way down. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen, I think you've probably diverted from what's being requested as an amendment there to a degree. So I think probably point of order is due that we focus on what that amendment is, and I get what you're saying, but I think that's a discussion that I don't think yeah, I don't think is for today personally. But so I guess coming back to the requested amendment there, is there anyone that would like to speak to that?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak against the motion. I realise Councillor John's passionate with his accounting practices and the way he does his business, and he's got a lot of experience in council, being a past CEO, but things have probably changed a little over the years. But I don't support policy on the run, and I'll stick with the original motion. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Collins?
Yeah, I understand fully where John's coming from. However, if we're eligible to borrow for it, as Leah's just said, I think we need to look at the big picture in the long term for the water, and we've got the figures there for the future. So I'm pretty sure they know what they're on about. So, yeah.
That's all right.
Thank you through the chair. I too, after the discussion at the briefing, I thought this was to ensure that we did have options moving forward, and yeah, and also we've got to advise Treasury in advance what we could potentially be looking at, just to give them an indication. So I think I wouldn't rule it out. Like, I think we need to look at it when it comes to the table. So I'm happy for it to stay in there and support the original motion.
I'll echo Councillor Wright's comments there. I actually think it's quite trivial, to be perfectly honest, because I think there is provision within that policy there to basically give us the option to borrow or not to borrow. So, I think we need to obviously consider that at the point in time where we need the funds to deliver the particular project, and I think we would be remiss not to leave any option on the table for it. I take your point, Councillor Finlay, that I think when that time comes, we need to consider what our best funding option is, and that money's there in the bank. Then I think we need to have that discussion around the table. But I think just removing it as an option from what is a fairly rudimentary policy is I think unnecessary. So. Any other comment? Councillor Finlay?
Yeah. I'm not convinced on the reasons why. Absolutely not at all. I think it's $860,000 loan on a $180 million budget. We're not making policy on the run, Mr. Mayor. This did come up in our briefing session, and I raised it then. So it's not policy on the run. We need to debate it around this table, not at a briefing session, and that's what we've got a right to do. Mr. Mayor, I don't understand. I really don't. Why we are intending borrowing $860,000 out of a $180 million budget, still left with $77 million in the bank. If anything, we would borrow it internally and keep that money within the council, not externally. I know we can do it on budget review, and obviously I have a lot to say on budget review if this stays in there. What I want to be for sure, and obviously this motion's not going to go anywhere, I want to be for sure that it comes back to council before we sign the letter of offer to the to QDC to get this loan.
I guess the amendment's with you there, Councillor. Do you want to change the amendment, or do you want to?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'll leave that amendment up there. Okay. Put it to the vote.
Yep. Okay. All right. The motion that Council resolve in accordance with Section 192 of Local Government Act Regulation 2012 to adopt the debt borrowing policy as attached, with the amendment at A to remove loan funding for the 25-26 financial year of $865,000 for water supply. Put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. 1 to 6. So we revert to the original motion, please. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Collins. Okay, the motion that Council resolve in accordance with Section 192 of the Local Government Regulation to adopt the debt borrowing policy for the 25-26 financial year. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Finlay, do you want to indicate your vote on the issue?
Yeah, I'm voting against it, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not putting my hand up and voting for it.
Yeah, no, I asked for who was for and who was against.
Oh,
so,
right, sorry.
yeah, thank you.
Fell asleep.
So the motion is carried 6-1. Okay, moving on to item 216, procurement policy for 25-26. Pretty straightforward. Any Councillor Clifford move and Councillor Wright second. Pretty straightforward policy. Any comment or question on the policy? Don't wish to speak, Director?
No changes.
The motion of council adopt the procurement policy for 2025-26 financial year. As per the report, I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item number 217, dividend policy. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Finlay. Mr CEO, do you want to talk to this one, please, given it is a new policy for the budget?
This is a new policy that really starts to have a look at our dividend and how we use our utilities and our commercials and provide that. I think it is important at this point, because of the new policy, for the officers just to walk through some of the key principles.
Thank you. Anyone have any?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I might ask the Manager of Financial Services to talk to the mechanics of the policy. It is a high-level policy that talks about essentially the framework and the fundamentals. It doesn't talk about detail and specific payments, but I'll ask the Manager to thanks, Leah.
So through the work councils will be doing around our significant and prescribed business activities, we apply our national competition policy to some of those activities. Through that process, we've got the ability to generate a return to ratepayer or a dividend, which is what this policy intends on formalising. It is something we've done historically, but this brings it to the council table for consideration and debate on how that's managed. So, as the CEO mentioned, the main purpose of this policy is around the principles that we've discussed with councillors around ensuring transparency across our organisation, as well as how to best use those return on investments for those significant and prescribed business activities where possible. Ensuring efficient financing of capital expenditure, ensuring that we're not drawing down too much retained earnings of those significant activities so they can fund future investment, and also being consistent with competitive neutrality, as we spoke about before. Policy references a dividend payout ratio, which is essentially a percentage of the surplus of those businesses. It doesn't dictate what council is setting that at. That would form into a guideline in future, but through this budget and through deliberations, we have discussed what that return to ratepayer would be for those activities over the next 3 years. Happy to take questions or feedback from councillors.
Mr Mayor, I support the policy. Probably a question to the CEO. As you said in your speech, Mr Mayor, we've got a $10 million general fund deficit. Plans, and we didn't put it in the budget this year, but obviously budget review number 1, we're going to have to make a decision on this, which is going to include possibly some dividends coming from, or increasing our dividends from our water and possibly sewage as well. Mr CEO, does this policy allow us at a budget review to increase or decrease the dividends during the year?
This policy only sets the principles, it doesn't set the actual amounts, and throughout the year we'll be looking at those. We will be aware of the principles, but I think the principles are broad enough to give us that flexibility over that time.
So, Mr Mayor, in a company structure, they usually declare dividends twice a year. So we can sort of do the same thing, Mr CEO. We could do one half year, one the second half year, something like that. And we can change the, I know you said it doesn't change the figure, but at our budget review, we're going to have to work out what that figure is and then make a call. And we can do that.
Mr Mayor, so yeah, I believe at each of our budget review processes, 1, 2 and 3, and also our final component for the year, we have an opportunity to review those numbers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do support the policy and the fact that the figures aren't locked into it, that we get to do those discussions going forward.
it does come down to a calculation based on weighted average cost of capital calculation, which I think is a very suitable acronym for WACC. I just want to be sure that our dividends are not whacking the people with taps and toilets. We have to look at this business as a whole. The current model is that 15,000 people with water, fuel with sewage, are subsidising the 19,000 plus rateable properties. And that's why I support this policy, because it allows us to discuss that, look at that and set that in an open and transparent way. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman, I guess my commentary back towards that is I think the dividend policy does recognise that. It recognises that the flow of funds from our commercial businesses back to the general business isn't open-ended, and we want to put some parameters around that in the form of a dividend. I think we've still got a lot of work to do in this space, but I think there is a recognition that there is a cost of government that is borne by the general fund. While I believe that the commercial businesses do have a requirement to pay a dividend back to the general fund, but I think the most important thing is we get to a position where we've got some clear parameters around what that is and also forecast that into the future. So, any further comment on this one? Councillor Simpson?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just support what you said, but also on our commercial businesses, we've got a number of businesses that are not core services of council, and I think they need to pay their way and put a dividend back in to help the ratepayer if they can. So, you know, we focus on roads, rates and rubbish and stuff, and we've also got airports and caravan parks and you know, we're looking at other things in the future, so I think it's important to implement policy now, and then we can look at it later on down the track.
Mayor, fully endorse your comments there, and I think, yeah, look, as we all know at the moment, the dividends are going back into the coffers that balance the budget. I take your point, some of that should be governance costs as well, but I hope in the future, once we go forward a little bit, that those dividends can go towards something substantial. And even if it is a loan for some community infrastructure that we've got to service that loan with, you know, we can rely on these dividends coming back into there, investing into that infrastructure for the future, not just getting swallowed up in the operational costs of the council.
Further comment? Okay, the motion that council resolved to adopt the dividend policy business activities for the 25-26 financial year as listed in the report, I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Number 2.18, community donations and support policies. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Wright. Julie, get to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, there are three community policies here today for adoption. They are basically, they've been reviewed and updated, and that's to meet the legislative requirements and align with the budget, plus ensure the currency of the policies. The three policies that you have in front of you are the community donations policy, the community grants policy, and the community sponsorship policy. There has been a couple of changes in most of them. Basically, definitions across all policies are very uniform now. There is a couple of extra sections within the community donations policy, and it will include donations for trade waste licence fees and general waste fees to be included. The biggest change that there is across all the policies now is that that eligible community organisations may make no more than one application for a community donation, including community grants and community sponsorship per financial year, and that will also include junior elite athletes. However, there is an exception in the community donations policy, and the exception is that it may or will be recognised for ongoing support to applications and fees associated with the ongoing use of council buildings, facilities, open spaces on a case-by-case basis in line with the intent of the policy. So basically, councillors, what that is, if the organisations are going to use a council facility or a council open space area, a second donation or sponsorship will be with that. So that's basically the changes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Director, any comments on this policy?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting all these changes today. I think the reduction to one application, even with some exemptions for maybe a second one, is not a transition, and I think that's what we've been trying to do. That's what we're trying to do with a number of things here is transition. I think this is a steep cut that can directly affect, you know, the valuable services that so many of these not-for-profits do. I tried to look at the RSL and Dawn service, street parade, early beach service, plus they also got donation on support of their PA system. So that's without the other things that they do. For me, looking at this, and I referred to in our operational plan, so I'm happy to work with this, but finalised review of community grants, donations and sponsorships. And that's what I think we need to do moving forward, is to look at it, all this. You know, outside of this one, we have a number of these groups that are getting significant community service obligations from our businesses, from hundreds to tens of thousands of dollars. We have other ones on peppercorn leases. They're the council assets they're maintaining for us. So for me, I think it's a bit too broad a brush just to say with one with some exceptions. I won't support it today, but I will support us looking at this more closely going forward, how this affects clubs going forward, and look to something that follows. You know, we look back to our administration on rates and charges policies. There's clauses there that lay it all out, all very clear, who's in, who's out, where the triggers are. I think we owe that to our not-for-profits to really give them the support and necessitate the services that they offer to the community. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman. You also like to comment? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I support the recommendation. It is a tough decision what we're having to do today. However, to ensure that council can support these not-for-profits, because they're an important part of our community, and to ensure that we can support these not-for-profits, we have to make sure that it's sustainable into the future. So, and I don't know one funding application or grant application out there that will give you 2 grants or 3 grants in a year. So I think we're just bringing it into line with other funding applications, and and of course, like, we don't want to take on the role of some of these not-for-profits, so we do have to continue to support them. 100%, they're really important, and I think the policy with the clause in it that says there is an exception, I think covers that. So I'm happy with the policy today.
Councillor Bowman, I agree with some of your commentary, absolutely. You know, I think, you know, the operational plan reflects that there's still a lot of work to do in this area. I think through the information that was presented to us, particularly regarding our spend in this area, we could see that we were at the very top end. You know, we've probably gotten out of whack with what other regions do with regards to these types of support to the community. And I think feedback from our own audit and risk committee and audit process has really indicated that this is an area that we needed to strengthen. I agree that what we've done is largely a sort of a brute force type sort of way of really reeling it in, but you know, I think the intent there is to make sure that we've got a more robust structure around our grants and community support mechanisms going forward. I note your comments around community service obligations, and we need to make sure that they're included in this discussion and that the support we put out to the community is equitable, much the way that we've looked at our rating structure to really adopt a model that improves the equity, but also simplicity, I think, in what we put out there. So, further comment? Councillor Finlay?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I support the policy, and look, unfortunately, you know, we've got to make a start on a few issues with our budgets. I think from the internal audit that was done, our council was right up there with the councils giving the most generosity and donations and contributions to the community organisations. And I just can't recall, and I might ask the CEO or Jason, do you remember the figure, like the combined total of what all these donation, their rates are? Was it 2.5 or something like that?
Around 2.6.
Yeah, $2.6 million, Mr. Mayor, something like that, which is a considerable amount that we I know we're collecting it from rates, but we're reinvesting it back into our community groups, which is great. And, you know, the application process is pretty simple. So, no, all good.
Any further comments on this report? Councillor Clifford?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be supporting this because if an exceptional circumstance comes up, then we can make a decision on whether to support that application or not. If that wasn't there, I wouldn't be supporting it.
Yeah, just follow on that and took it out, took some thunder off me, but yeah, exactly, that's it, right. I mean, we should, you know, if a community group wants to use our facilities, Mr Mayor, let's go and support them. We've got our great events coordinator there that helps out those type of things, and we need to really encourage our community groups to use our facilities, our town shells, our Airlie Beach Bar, Collinsville, wherever, Proserpine Entertainment Centre, whatever. So we've got great facilities, we've invested heavily in the community on that infrastructure, and let's put it to good use.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't see anything in the policy that says it would come back to the table for those discussions. It would still be under a delegated authority, and that's where I think policy needs to set the circumstances for us so it's clear to everyone and the community groups. And again, I don't see this being fair and equitable. There are groups that only put in one application each year. This will have absolutely no financial detriment to them. Yet the different groups that do a number of things are forced to choose, and they will be suffering detriment. So I don't see this as fair and equitable. It's not going to affect some people at all. So I said there's people getting community service obligations, there's people getting assistance through work camp and other things that have cost to the ratepayer, and then they're still getting a grant, exactly the same as somebody else who's getting none of that financial benefit from council. So for me, it's still a no. Thank you.
Yes, through you to Director Julie. What is your delegated financial authority? So could we put an amendment in here that anything over $1,000 or something has to come back to us, or some arbitrary figure? I'm not sure what your authority is, or is it through the CEO?
Probably three things. One is, while it's policy, we will then be preparing an operational guideline which is signed up by myself. I'll probably be discussing it with you, so maybe not coming back every time, but having that to give us a little bit more guidance in relation to it. And both myself and Director Julie have delegation limits in relation to financials, and when they are triggered, that does cause us to come back. So we've paid for a number of our grants and operations already. So I don't think there's a need to add that at this particular time. But I think if there is concern in relation to elements, then in addition to the policy, we'll be looking at an operational guideline that gives us a little bit more guidance.
Mayor, just a question on that. I think, or maybe Director Julie, is it 10,000 at the moment? 20, is it?
Councillor 20.
Okay, so our special project grants of 10, aren't they? Something?
Special,
Sorry.
special project grants are going to be capped at 7,500. Okay, but it's $20,000 is the delegation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with that delegation. Otherwise, I have to put my running shoes on.
Okay, further comments on this one? Okay, the motion that council adopt the following policies, being the community donations policy, community grants policy, and community sponsorship policy as per the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 6-1.
Division, please.
Division Councillor Bowman. Item 2.19, application of Code of Competitive Conduct to business activities. Moved Councillor Collins, second Councillor Clifford. Fairly procedural. Any comments from the councillors on this particular one? No? Okay, the motion that council resolves in accordance with Local Government Act 2009 apply competitive code of conduct to the entities, the business functions listed in the report, and not apply the competitive code of conduct to road maintenance activity in line with the detail listed in the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Number 220, performance plans of business activities. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Wright. How do you want to look at this one, Mr. CEO? Do you want to address it first, Jason, or do you want
I might just make some opening comments and then pass to the Manager of Financial Services to talk to the detail. There are quite a level of detail in these reports. Just for noting, it is presenting performance plans for each of those significant and prescribed business activities of Council. It should be noted there are a couple of minor amendments to be made to some of the wording in those policies. They don't change in those plans that weren't picked up in our final review. So apologies for that. They don't impact what the outcome is. They're just some wording changes that need to be made. Laura, I might ask you to talk to the detail of those.
Through the Chair, I might just pass over to Katie, our Coordinator of Strategic Finance, to give her an opportunity to talk through this report.
Got the floor, Katie.
Okay, so basically in item 2.20, it presents the annual performance plans for those 7 significant and prescribed business activities. Basically, all of those activities and annual performance plans have been presented and put together in accordance with the regulations. There's 9 requirements and all of them meet those. So yeah, I'll take it as read, and if you have any questions, happy to answer those. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak to them, Councillor Finlay?
Yes, now I'll speak to them. Mainly to do with probably the water and the sewage and the waste. The significant capital projects that are in there for this year. 17 million for water, 6 odd million for sewage, 20 or something like that for the waste. One for, is it 20 or 14, something like that? 14, Mr. Mayor, which includes the cell plus the remediation work. So, yeah, in those performance plans, we've got a lot to deliver this year, and but yeah, it's good to have that in there. I'm going to make one comment, Mr. Mayor. In those performance plans, it does show the borrowings, which, as previous motion, I got defeated on. I'm happy to support these plans.
Noting your comments from the previous.
Please, Mr. Mayor.
No problem, Councillor Finlay.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to the performance plans? Look, I think these documents are good. I think that they're areas of our organisation that sometimes, you know, attract more scrutiny. I think that we need to explain, you know, what our expectations of performance are in those particular business, and I think that does that. I think, you know, something, I guess not singling out anyone in particular, but look at the PEC. You know, we know that that's a facility that's recently been re-established. It comes at a significant cost to council and the community. So I think it's important that we put some real parameters on what that delivers back to the community in terms of its own performance. So yeah, I just want to commend the performance plans and yeah, really highlight that they are a good insight for the community into seeing what's going on with those particular functions within the organisation. Any further comment or question? Okay, the motion that Council resolve in accordance with section 172 and 175 of Local Government Regulation 2012 to adopt the performance plans for the business activities listed in the report for the 25-26 financial year. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Okay, our final item is the budget, item 221, budget 25-26, which I'll start by moving that one, and note that I will move it with an amendment there. So I think we've spoken through to, I guess generally the budget itself, fully supportive of what we're adopting. I'm not seeking any changes to the budget or what's listed there. What I'm seeking an amendment is just to add an additional item at the very end, which really highlights some of the things that I discussed earlier through my mayoral speech, and probably that we've had additional discussion on through the day with regards to our dividend policy. And that's really highlighting the need as an organisation to address that deficit in our general fund. So really the additional amendment there to the recommendation is to provide direction to the CEO to address the funding shortfalls within the general funded activities of council through the use of pulling a dividend from our commercial businesses and also implementing a range of operational initiatives to address the remaining shortfall in the general funded functions. Do I have a second to that? Yep, second, Councillor Collins. Director Bradshaw, I might let you speak to the rest of it, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, if you have before you essentially the ultimate recommendation for the adoption of the budget, I'll make some comments if I may, Mr. Mayor. So the 25-26 budget is a $284 million budget, $170 million around the operations of council, and about $114 million for capital investment. It endeavours to strike an appropriate balance between maintaining council's financial position whilst not placing too heavy a burden on ratepayers through substantial rate increases. A range of external factors continue to impact on the cost of providing council services, and these had to be taken into account in preparing this particular budget. The underlying intent of the budget remains to strengthen council's financial position, enhance its commercial activities while delivering the capital works required to ensure council can continue to deliver the services provided to the community sustainably into the future. The budget is presented essentially as 8 financial statements to council. There are a range of recommendations there. It also addresses council's requirements under the financial guidelines from the state government to talk about the sustainability measures that are contained within guidelines that council reports against. All of the measures are within the targeted ranges for council for the 2025-26 year onwards, excluding the estimated actuals, which may result in the current financial year ending in a deficit depending on timing of grants and other payments. Mr. Mayor, the budget is a complex process. It has taken a significant number of months. You'll see in the recommendations that in funding the capital works particularly, there are movements to and from reserves to fund those particular works through what's required in the accounting treatments for those. I'm happy to take any questions on the budget as councillors may see.
Yeah, I just remiss that you did probably want to have a section to talk to the budget after my speech. Do you want to add anything to this piece at the moment? Or?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important to note that this is a very significant budget program. It covers all aspects of us, and as a council, we do deliver over 60 different businesses. And so it's not just about one size fits all, it's about a whole range of activities which are together make up our budget going forward. And therefore it is quite a complex budget. And as the councillors have worked through the process diligently over the last few months as part of that process, we have got to a point where this is a budget will set us forward for the next year ahead and also provide some of the basis for us for the longer term.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
I'd just like to acknowledge the work that Jason, Leah and Katie have done and his team. Fantastic. It's been a long, hard, but it's been a hard budget, but it's a smart budget and it's well overdue. All the directors, Julie, Neil, Gary, who else is there? Obviously Jason, Craig and Adam Hagee. Well done. Thanks for going through all the motions with us. Roy, your speech, fantastic, mate, and I highly commend it with fantastic speech. And if anyone wants to know about the budget, I'm just going to say go and read the Mayor's speech because he's done a summary from top to bottom, and it's that's all you need to know, really. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clifford.
Just a very quick question, if I might, to Director Jason. The $5 million insurance, is that from Cyclone Debbie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There is an insurance fund that has been set up and some of that money does come from that event. There are obviously still pieces of infrastructure that we're working towards, and one of those is to do with the water reservoir. Those funds may not necessarily have been received because that claim hasn't been finalised, but funds have been set aside previously and they're just being drawn down from that reserve.
Good to know.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Reiterate everyone's thanks. I know it's been a long process. Appreciate everyone going through this. I think there's been a learning experience across the entire organisation and at the table, and I think it does set us up for a path forward. One thing the CEO touched on is same size doesn't fit all. In our not that I'm not supporting the budget in total, but in our efficiency challenges and seeking efficiencies, I think there is a different cost base across it. I see in the operational plan we're talking about libraries as well. For me, I think there becomes a point where some things are financially irresponsible. There are other things where it's a service at a cost to the community that has a benefit. I want us to maintain that separation and seek the true balance between cost and benefit, not just say if someone doesn't get it, nobody gets it. The other question to the director I expect is probably just around the disaster resilience reserve, page 355, just the transfer for betterment of roads, which is something I really support, but disaster resilience reserve was before my time. I can't really find anything about it back before 2020. I see some transfers in and out of it. From my memory, before I was on council, it was about having funds in place in case there was an emergency until assistance came through. I'm just wondering, I haven't seen policy guidelines, anything on what helps us transition money into and out of this account. I didn't know if it was just taking thing out of the cash bucket and putting it into a different bucket so we didn't have $150 million in the bank. But I was just wondering if you could describe to us a little bit more about the Disaster Resilience Reserve and why we're triggering this money towards betterment. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might ask the manager to address that question if we can.
Yes, Chair. We put in place the Disaster Resilience Reserve that gets built on when we have the capacity to. Through our project management framework, as projects are identified in the capital program, if they meet the criteria for betterment, it's going to prevent us from having significant damage again, or worse, repetitive damage on roads, for example, which this one relates to ensure long-term sustainability and reduce the number of claims we have to make and ensure our infrastructure lasts as long as we hope that it will do, excluding weather events.
It's Finlay.
Mr. Mayor, you've halved my speech on putting that last paragraph in that motion. Well done. I fully support that motion that you put up there. But I will have a little bit to say. I actually reluctantly support this budget, knowing that we have got a $9 million general fund deficit and we're going to address it, which is great news. All my time working for councils, preparing budgets, I've never ever been involved with a deficit general fund budget. And this wasn't going to be my first time. So I was strongly going to say no to this budget. But now you've got that resolution up there, Mr. Mayor. Part of that, I'm happy to support the budget. And thank you for that. Last year, we had a similar situation. And we pulled and balanced it by significant dividends coming out of the water fund, which is recommended by the staff. These actually did have a detrimental balance on the cash reserves for those units, as we can see what's happened this year. That amount is not sustainable. Following last year's budget, we, as directors, councillors, whatever you like to call us, we provided with little and not timely information on probably being informed of the budget. So this year, as you said in your opening speech, we set about questioning, and we had all the function roadshows throughout the year, and it was good to see what was in, what was out, and what was included, and why the big changes from one year to the next. So going forward, I want to continue that process, Mr. Mayor, and we're not stopping. Upon consistent requests, and I take on my CPA qualifications and my local government experience, I requested updated models of our business units consistently throughout the year, and we finally got them just before the budget, which is good. But now we know as councillors exactly the bottom line of those business units, and we can confidently say to the public that those business units are in order of returning a $15 million surplus. Because if you take, got to do maths here, 3.9 surplus, out of the 9.3 deficit of the general fund, you're looking somewhere between $12, $15 million surplus in those other funds. That is really, what can I say, an important piece of information, Mr. Mayor, because it goes to show that those business units are being managed. Not saying that we don't have to review them as well operationally, because the more money we save, the more money we don't have to put the rates up by. So it's good to see that, and confidently saying that yes, general fund's not contributing to the water, the airport, and whatever. So what I'm going to say, but what I'd like now to see is that we also have a general fund financial plan in a very similar way. The general fund is a big business unit, right? And that's where everything all gets swallowed up in this thing. So we need to have a full showing all the reserves. We mentioned insurance reserve, disaster reserve, whatever reserve we've got in the general fund. That also needs to be in the capital funding in the appropriation statement there as well, Mr. Mayor. So, as you said in that motion, we need to continue the review of our operations for reduction in expenditure. We as a council in the last 2 years have put the rates up quite dramatically, Mr. Mayor. And there is a limit to what we can put our rates up to. There is a limit. People are hurting out there in this community. The cost of living is through the roof. I work for an organisation where we support those people in need, and there's more people coming through our doors. And so we as a council have to be very, very responsible to the limit on what people can actually afford to pay. So going forward in our future years, no doubt we'll take that in consideration. We may have to look at a reduction of our service standards. We may have to look at asset rationalisation that we've already spoke about. The depreciation levels and things, you know, on rock walls and things is what we spoke about. Maybe the number of IT equipment that we've got floating around the place as well. Every little bit counts, Mr. Mayor. And even if we save $10,000 here, $10,000 there, whatever, when you accumulate it all in, it's what you said, Mr. Mayor, it adds up. So we need every cent we can in this place. We need to have not a value, but a conscience that we're about saving money and being cost effective on anything that we do, because it's all going to come back. So, and we need to start somewhere. The actions need to be undertaken. We cannot keep going the way we are. And your speech was great, Mr. Mayor. It really was. I really endorse that. And I'm proud to be standing behind you with that speech, going out there to the community saying what you just said, and with that recommendation up there. So during this year coming up, Mr. Mayor, what I expect is that we receive quarterly comprehensive financial updates in the form of what we've just received for our business units. They were good. They gave us all the information that we want. We gave us to and from all the reserves. We know what the bottom line is. And I'm expecting that to be having them quarterly for all our business units. We'll work on the general fund as well. So yeah, we just need to do that so that we as directors of this council can confidently say to the community, we have got the finances of this organisation under control. And so I'll speak to that. Mr. Mayor, again, I applaud you for your speech. I applaud you for your direction on this, where we're going, and thank you very much.
Any further commentary towards the budget? Councillor Bowman?
Thank you. Just, Councillor John doesn't want to follow on. Just in relation to rating shifts, I think last year we saw significant changes through revaluations, through the ideal to keep owner occupiers at 0% revenue. Some people's rates actually went down. This year, when we look at this change in equity, the numbers I read in the report are about 33% of people's rates will actually be going down. 66% are raising, but the far majority of that is in that 2 to 5% range. This is partly a correction of what happened with the large valuation changes last year, but it is a shift to better equity, not just a simple rate increase. So I support us moving to a model that will carry us further forward. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, apart from that speech, I've got to do a question on the cash flow. And I seek some answers on that one. It's on page 365, Mr. Mayor. What I want to acknowledge here that our estimated cash at the end of 2025-26 with the investments is $170 million. Our cash flow is going to reduce down to about 77,000, I think it is, 36 plus 40, around about 77. There's a reduction of $40 million, Mr. Mayor, this year in our cash. I've had a look through the cash flow here. It's a little interesting document because our operating receipts and our cash flow provided by operation activities have gone up compared to last year. Our contributions have gone up from last year. Our grants have gone up from last year. Our loans have gone up from last year. Our borrowings have gone up a little bit. But I'm just getting an explanation to why we end up with a $38 million reduction in our cash balance, Mr. Mayor. Don't quite follow.
Director Bradshaw, would you like to sign?
I'll ask the financial services to respond to that.
So through the chair, the main impact relates to our capital program and the actual spending of funds. As we have matured over the last few years through the project management framework, we've been able to deliver more and more of our capital program with less and less carryover each financial year. This is just representative of that catch up that we are having and are close to getting to our target of 90% spend. And recognising that next year we are expecting to spend our capital program, our full capital program, whereas obviously our original budget has adjusted throughout the budget reviews and been amended where needed.
Mr. Mayor, this is line item there. Payments for property, plant and equipment. Last year it was 108 million, this year it's 107 million. The other line items are movement in work in progress. What's that got to do with our cash?
So through the chair, that relates to essentially funds that we have allocated to spend on our capital program that's set in our work in progress that we haven't yet expensed yet. This is the recognition of us actually paying those bills and the funds moving out to cover the costs of that capital works.
Any further commentary around the budget, financial statements, amendment? Ms. Finlay, did you want to? Got something on the tip of your tongue there?
I support the budget, but if there's no other further comment, can I just make note that as per the previous motion about the debt, I don't agree with the debt borrowings in the budget.
Yep. That's noted.
Happy to support the rest of it.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Look, I know this has been a very long process, and I think we've really unpacked it and answered a lot of the questions that we have had. And yeah, thank you very much to the finance team, Jason, Leah and Katie and everyone else. I know you put in a lot of hours that we don't see. So yeah, this is not an easy process, but yeah, I myself and I know the majority of the councillors do really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Further comments regarding the budget? Thanks, Mark.
Finish on a happy note, hopefully. I think lucky last page, just with our long-term financial plan and the looking forwards with the percentage increases on rates and utilities. I think we can see a tapering moving off to 2.1% per year instead of the 9.3 that's happened this year. So I think there is a plan. I think there is a catch-up. I think businesses that are paying extra rates, it gives council the money to provide the services and facilities they need to flourish. If businesses are giving us the money to look after the parks and gardens and the foreshores and the main streets better, that helps those businesses flourish. If shopping centres are paying for the rates, that means we can re-bitumen the roads up to their driveways that are crumbling from the number of cars coming and going, then I think that's a good return on investment for them. So I do look to the fact that we're taking the pain and that we are looking forward to something that makes us sustainable. I'd like to thank everyone for their efforts again. Thanks.
Any further councillors? Okay, so the motion that council resolve to receive the statement of estimated financial position for 24-25, presented in accordance with the local government regulation, to adopt the Whitsunday Regional Council budget as per item B there, and the associated financial statements. C, to adopt the net movements from reserves as detailed in the report. D, to adopt council's long-term financial forecast and statements as per the report. And E, which is the amended item, to direct the CEO to address the funding shortfalls within the general fund as specified in the report. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Very good, people.
That notation.
What's that?
With that notation about the loan for me, please.
Notation from Councillor Finlay,
Not agreeing with the loan.
not agreeing with the loan, even though it was noted on the debt policy as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Good special meeting. We'll declare the special meeting closed at 10:44 a.m. So we do have the ordinary meeting to go to, but I think it's time for some